Welcome back to the 2017 season. It's 2016 actually, but we take the summers off shooting our videos and we're just firing up for the season right now. And we're going to start this one with vises. This is not a shootout. This is not what vice is better than the other vice. This is kind of an entry-level thing. This isn't for the advanced tyer. This is more for the person who's just getting into tying, because we're seeing a big growth in fly tying in the last 3 years. I think it's from the social media effect, because you're seeing a lot of people posting up and it's really gaining popularity. So I'm getting questions almost daily on what vice to use and whose vice and what do I need in my vices and stuff like that. So I'm going to go through kind of a basic tutorial here. Not about which vice is better, how to use them so much, just kind of things to look for. So the very first thing you got to ask yourself is how much you're going to use this vice. If you're going to tie just now and then, you don't need to pay for the bells and whistles. And then you got to ask yourself what you're going to tie. If you're going to tie everything, that's one vice, and if you're going to tie just giant tarpon flies or bass flies, then that may be another one. But I'm going to go through the very basics right now. So, and these are questions that I'm getting quite frequently. So the first thing I want to go over is what's called a C-clamp vice. This is a C-clamp. C-clamp simply means how you attach it to the bench. So this is just the most basic vice. This is a vice almost all my generation learned to tie, and it's a Thompson. Back then it was a Thompson A, now it's a 2. It's just a cam vice. It hooks the hook right there, doesn't move. And this is a C-clamp, and you simply attach that to the table. The other style is called a pedestal. It's very simple. You can move this. So one of the first things you ask yourself is, do you have a designated fly tying area? If you have an area where you're going to tie, you may prefer, like I do, I like a C-clamp. I have one I built here. If you're kind of portable, kind of mobile, you want to be able to take it around, then maybe a pedestal is a better idea. Here's the good news. You can get a C-clamp or a pedestal for virtually any of them, so it's not like a giant selling point one way or the other. When I travel, I do seminars all over the place. I almost always have to carry a C-clamp with me, because I do not like, and this is just a personal thing when you're thinking about how you tie, if you notice my vice is kind of close to me and it's down below me here. That's how I like to tie. I like to sit just like this. That's where I like to be. Now if I take a pedestal and I set this up here, now I got to slide in and I kind of got to reach up and over. It's just, and I grew up tying like that. That's how I learned to tie, but I don't like it anymore. It's a comfort thing for me, so I set back, I use a C. When I'm on the road, I travel with this, pedestal. You'll get used to whatever. It's not that big a deal, and like I said, you can buy either one. You can buy a C-clamp or a pedestal, either one. So now I want to go through this is the question that I get constantly. It's more about the dollar value than it is anything. Everybody wants to know, do I need to buy this or do I need to buy that? And you don't really need to do anything. The thing you have to remember is a vice, it just holds the hook. The rest of the stuff is stuff you learn as you go. But the vice is designed to set the hook and keep it nice and stationary while all fly tying is adding materials to the hook. So the hook sits there, and are you comfortable where that hook is at? And does your hand sit on the vice nicely? Does it? That's just what, and every one of them's different, and they all have adjustables. This one might be like this. This is a Regal. You could have it straight down. You'll adjust that to whatever you like. But the basic premise here is, with the underlying question that I'm getting on these emails is, if I buy this vice, almost, will that make me a better? You're only as good as you are. The tool is probably better than all of us. It's just like I always use the example for woodworking, because I love to work with wood, and I build these cabinets and build houses and whatever. I'm not better than my saw. And so for me to buy a $5,000 table saw makes me feel good, but I'm not as good as the tool. So until you outgrow the tool, you're really kind of wasting money. But just in a nutshell, so I'm going to take this Regal, because I think in reality, I think as many people between the Thompson and the Regal, Johnny I know tied on the Regal when he started, this is just a great vise. And I don't mean as a starter. I mean, there's a lot of pros that still tie on the Regal. And again, back to what you're going to do. The hook, there's no substitute, for a good holding, a hook being held well. And this vise and all the vices up here, virtually every vise does that just as well. Does it hold the hook well? That's the first thing. At that point, now you've got to learn to adjust, to put the materials on, and there's no substitute for repetition in fly tying. So you need to learn to put your materials on with your bobbin, wherever my bobbin is. And the idea here is that you have great thread tension. You have to learn that in a stationary position. That doesn't do that, I just loosened it up. So you learn to do that. So rotaries, which I'm going to get to in a second, aren't going to help you tie better. You've got to learn to do this first, learn to get your thread control, learn to set your materials on the hook, and then you can push yourself into the rotary mechanisms like the one I tie on here. And what this is allowing you to, there's a lot of moving parts on a rotary. And so when people look at the Dynakings and the Renzettis and the high-end Regals and the Peaks and the rest of them, there's kind of this idea that maybe if I buy a really good vise, it's going to help me tie. It's not. It's no different me than in the $5,000 table saw. You have to get to its level. And so it won't help you to have a rotary vise. The only thing that I tell people is if you're tying smaller, more detailed flies, now for me personally, I couldn't live without a rotary. I've been tying on one so long that it's just part of the tying process for me. But I learned to apply the materials first. And so what I see with people that go right into rotaries when they first try to use them, they haven't developed the skill sets to set the thread with equal pressure and set their materials. And so they think this is going to advance them, and it really doesn't. The good news, though, is that you can lock these vices. A rotary vise has a locking mechanism, so it's no different than any of the rest of them. And once you get to that point, you can loosen that up and you can start practicing with it, and you can make the rotary part of your life. But in the beginning, it's probably not going to help you. And so, but like I said, you can lock it. So the next question is, and like I tell people, well, if you buy one of these, you can always progress into it. You will never wear one of these vices out unless you're a 3,000 a dozen a year tyer. And the only thing you can really wear out are the jaws, and you can replace them. So it's not like it's a bad investment. So what you're getting here when you start looking at them, like again, this is what my question keeps getting asked, is what am I getting when I buy these vices? And I was thinking about it earlier, and I reckon it a lot to like buying a car. So over here, and these are just Renzettis. I tie in a Renzetti. I sell a lot of them. I know the Dynakings, the Regals. I like all of them. It's just, I got used to this one. I've been tying on it forever, and so that's what I tie on. But what I started thinking about, like here's a Traveler over here. There's two levels of Traveler. They start at, say, $170, and basically vices go up in $100 increments. And so what you're paying for, it's like buying a car. Over here, I got vinyl seats. Here I got cloth seats, and here I got heated and cool leather seats. And that's what you're paying for. Fit and finish. It's not that this vise is this one's going to make your fly better or worse than the Traveler is. It's just that it's got, now we've went into brass fittings and different types of bearings and a higher polish, a higher fit and finish. That's really what you're paying for. $100, $200, $300. I mean, they go up $100 increments. And so you're paying for fit and finish, but that alone is not going to make your fly better. But if you go into this one, obviously there's not much you can go above that, so you can develop into it. You could get along just fine with that starter vise, with that $170 vise forever. I mean, I still tie them with these. I've got one I carry around with me. They hold the hook. You will progress into it. After that, then it's just a matter of, you know, developing your techniques and what are you going to tie. If you know you're going to tie giant flies, maybe you don't go into the rotaries and you go into the fixed heads like this, like the Regal, because you're not really going to ever use that. If you're not going to go into rotating your hook to put a ply hackle, counter ribbing, and things like that, if you're tying basically big flies and all you ever use that rotary mechanism for, and by the way, this Regal that this is to me is a fixed jaw vise, and it does flip, but it's not a rotary like this. And if so, for example, if you tie a lot of big flies and you just want to be able to flip it over to see if the belly's right and flip it back, it really doesn't behoove you to spend the extra $200 to step it up. And so but that's just a starter. It's however you like to do things. I'm going to do one later. The next video we're going to do it about the rotary specifically and show you a few things about setting them and why you may or may not want to go that direction. But as a starting point, figure out how much you're going to use it, and remember you're paying for fit and finish mostly as you jump in your dollar values, and are you going to truly use the rotary mechanism, or are you going to be totally fine with just using a fixed jaw vise? Hope that helps you out.